Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for another edition of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where we look back on our classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews as we count down the 100 weeks to the 100th and final episode. Welcome to everyone who's already arrived in the chat. Welcome Sean, welcome Chris, welcome Rudy, welcome Scott, welcome Jenny, and happy birthday to Sean. Hope it was a good one. And happy birthday in advance to Scott. And this is actually a bit of a special day, in case he happens to be watching. Happy birthday to my dad, and also happy birthday to my late grandfather, who actually, if he were still alive, would have turned 100 years old today. Obviously, as I've made mention of before, he did pass a few years ago, but if he were still alive to this day, he would have turned 100 today, and my dad does share a birthday with his father, so my dad was my grandfather's birthday gift many years ago. So happy birthday, Dad. I look forward to speaking to you again to hear more about how your week's been. So with regards to questions in the chat, what is my favorite superhero? Because Rudy's is Captain America and Wonder Woman. I mean, Power Rangers in general are my favorite superheroes, but if I had to pick more along the traditional lines, growing up, my favorite superhero was, outside of the Power Rangers, was always Spider-Man. I don't know if it still is or not. I don't know if I'd be hard pressed to say definitively one way or another. But I did always enjoy Spider-Man growing up. Although I haven't kept up with the Tom Holland movies because I was very disappointed when Andrew Garfield was let go from the role, as I've mentioned plenty of times in the past. But hearing that he has, apparently played a role in No Way Home, I look forward to hopefully checking out that film at some point. I don't know when, since I'm not particularly interested in going to movie theaters, but I'll find a chance, I'm sure. Welcome Dyrano, welcome Dan, welcome Nightwing Josh. Thank you, Dyrano. Oh no, 100th birthday to my late grandfather, not 100th birthday to my dad. My dad is not 100 years old. My dad's dad would have been 100 years old if he were still alive. And yes, Vandalia, this will be the episode with the Quantosaurus, with the Q-Rex rant. Yes. And as far as updates this week, I still haven't seen any news about when Dino Fury will be returning on Netflix. But with regards to episode 96, I just had a bit of a marathon filming session last night. We did like 4 hours of combat filming stuff, and I went very late into the evening. So I'm a little tired today, but progress is coming along very well on 96. Really, at this point, I mostly just need to film things from the final sequence, as well as a few pickup shots along the way. So that'll... I hope to be able to film the remainder of what I have left by the end of the month. I've already filmed well over 8 hours, probably closer to 9 hours now worth of footage. So I still have. I'm constantly coming up with new stuff to edit, but all my voiceovers are done. Everything that I need to shoot with other actors is done, and the majority of what I have to shoot for myself is done. So we're getting to a good spot where hopefully soon I'll be able to have a definitive confirmation on the release of 96. I just really need to go through some of the effects assets to gauge how close they are to being ready to go. any news about Power Rangers Dino Fury toys? I know that I've seen some announcements on Twitter about about some new stuff coming out for next season. The Terra Freezord, which we've seen glimpses of. Um, the Dino Knight, a figure for the Red Dino Knight, and I think figures for Javi and Izzy with the boost sleeves. So I've been seeing little rumblings of things coming out for next year. On average, how many hours do I need to film one episode? I mean, it's varied a lot over the years, but it probably averages out around 6 hours, if not more, because it's I do a lot of takes of everything, and then there's the dead space in between takes, and because the show has so much compositing, a lot of times, I'll have to film a shot as one character, and then as a different character, and then maybe as a third character, and things like that. So it does add up pretty fast. So yes, each episode I'd say takes, on average, I'd say at least 6 hours of footage, and year 3 has been steadily increasing that average. But speaking of Power Reviews, we should be checking out our little commentary episode in just a moment, but before we do, as always, let us not forget our 3 equally non-controversial statements. So, number 1, say it with me, chat, Black Lives Matter. Number 2, say it with me, chat, fascism is bad. And number 3, say it with me, chat, superheroes are fun. So let's check back in with our favorite superhero, One Database Ranger, with the 63rd episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews. Our review of the Power Rangers Super Megaforce, Episode 8, Silver Lining, Part 2.
Previously on Power Review. You were sent by Hexagon to infiltrate Outfit Soup. It's morphin' time. Teleportation and invisibility. Comes with the suit.
Yes, Diardo, I see you quoting my rant from later in this episode.
The transdimensional tear in the hallway. I think we have another tear.
I'll teleport in and out before anyone even knows I was there.
Not this place. No one gets in.
Glitching. There it goes.
You must have given them enough sedative to knock
Yeah,
them black.
Nightwing Josh, this is very much a good guy and database bonding episode.
You've never heard of Terra Venture? Giant space colony. Crash landed on Mirror's moon after passing through a couple interdimensional.
What's going on here?
Rifts.
Oh, was this? What's going on with the... Give me a moment. We're back. We might be back. There we go. Connection back. There we go. Welcome back. Sorry to lose you there, Ranger fans. I don't know quite what happened. My little laptop that I used for streaming froze for a bit, but we do seem to be fully back, which is fantastic. So, and yeah, I don't know what's going on with YouTube here. Why it created a weird offset for that 1 minute during the recap, because it definitely looks fine when I scroll through with my mouse, so I don't know what was going on there. So I'll just pick it up from the end of the recap with the greetings, Ranger fans.
Greetings, Ranger fans,
and welcome
to the return of
T Omega. But yeah, this stunt with Guy is just great, because we lifts him right up and he throws him right into the wall. And Dave did that. Dave hurled himself at that wall. And as I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of takes. Dave did that like half a dozen times. And I kept asking him, like, okay, are you all right? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Do you need me to do it again? Did that look good? I'm like, I guess, but okay. Like, that was just such a fantastic throw. Him rolling over Tom's shoulder for when Tom did the lift. We had him standing on a chair, so he had to jump over to carry. But the fact that he did that that roll over Tom's shoulder, and then we cut to him doing that, just hurling himself into the wall repeatedly. Dave was such a champ in this episode. Like, I find yourself a friend like Dave who will just hurl himself into a wall on your behalf with little to no actual insistence. But I also love the T Omega effects as well. It was something that I felt really came across really well. I'm a little disappointed with my white balance during this back and forth bit.
We'll trade off. You tell me the story of Alphabet Soup, and I'll tell you the story of Episode 8, Power Rangers Super Megaforce. Number 11.
Dave didn't hurt himself. I was amazed. I kept thinking he was going to. But he's done a little bit of Aikido practice, so he had been so he'd learned how to roll and to take a fall really well.
I'm pretty sure it was just earlier that day, but you know how temporal distortions work. He introduces himself as Orion from the planet Antracia.
And yeah, all that back and forth is all one hallway. It's definitely not shot as nicely as I would like, but it's one of those sort of limits of dealing with filming on a tripod. You know, normally if you're having two characters walking and talking, you would do a tracking shot, but in universe with the Squee, it tends to exist in finite spots on any given at any given time. With the exception of the Power Morphicon live episode.
Just for a change of pace, we segue into the new opening credits, which has Orion happily calling his name out with the rest of them, and Tensu spinning around in circles.
There we go.
Fun times. But back to the story.
So, yeah, I'm trying to. I have it sort of. I always have it kind of backtracking through the same hallways over and over again, just for simplicity of shooting. Because you can only be moving around so much. And there we go, coming back out the freight elevator. But yeah, Orion was definitely the most well-developed character in Super Megaforce. I mean, not that there's tremendous competition, but far and away. And it's a shame that he's in, you know, not even really a dozen episodes.
Select the property to the electronic eyeline mark for Millennium Edition, or select the property to the electronic eyeline mark for Ultimate.
Squee for me or squee for you?
Hi, I'm Mitch Morpotsner.
I'm Mary Morpotsner.
We're the Morpotsners.
I love.
Guys, I know who you are. It's database.
Oh, hi, database.
I love also the way that they answer the phone is fantastic.
Would you like? No, I mean as soon as possible. By that same dumpster as last time.
Oh, okay. We look forward to seeing you again. Bye, database.
You do realize I'm totally going with you guys, right?
Okay.
I love the Morpotsners so much. Like,
You with me, guys?
Sure.
Then
this is, you know, the spring finale, so I always like to make sure to have the full cast for these, you know, little mini finale moments. And here we just get the big backstory dump on Alphabet Soup. Which is something that I always wanted to sort of expand upon, and I felt like with the inclusion of Alphabet Soup as such a major force in this show, they deserved a proper backstory, more of a hierarchy and structure, and and more build up and development.
That many acronyms in one place. Can you think of a better code name? Fair enough. Okay. Save your breath.
And we even have, and this whole thing with how injured Guy is sort of reinforced later with episode 95, where we get the line, T Omega nearly put you through a wall. Like now we know as of episode 95, without presenting too many spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it. But we've now learned that there is a specific entity behind the merging of the T agents. As we saw when they were initially split apart at the end of when they were successfully split apart at the end of episode 80. Did Mayo ever come up with a fourth name for the Squee? I do have a name for the fourth Squee. It is not one that I think we actually have managed to work into the dialogue at any point yet. But I do have a little bit in mind for how it might be revealed.
So after a few months of lying low, learning how to spear fish,
yeah, I could see S.H.I.E.L.D. as being integrated into Alphabet Soup in another reality.
And uses the crystal container and his super mega homemade slingshot to take down one of the Armada warships. In the perfect combination of a killer arm and shoddy craftsmanship.
Yep.
And due to what I can only assume is a limited warranty, they leave the ship behind for him to apply his silver mining education towards repairing the advanced alien technology and getting the old girl's face with.
And again, I've been watching Gokaiger lately, and this was, I think, an interesting use of Bosco's ship.
All the way to Earth, catching us up to his present-day mission to avenge his people and prevent others from meeting the same fate.
The seventh NA robot. Yes, this is true. I still don't consider Robo Knight to be a Sixth Ranger, personally. He may technically fill the Sixth Ranger role, and he may be treated as a Sixth Ranger, but he's an extra hero. He's not there's no Ranger in his name. He doesn't have a Ranger designation. And he doesn't have a Ranger-style suit.
Speaking of teleporting, you should get out of here while you still can. Forget about it. I'm not leaving you behind. Especially not with the T-Twins back in the picture. Now, wait here while I make sure the coast is clear.
Unfortunately, the audio on this episode is rough.
How's it going? We heard that you found a new job. That's definitely new.
Yep.
The girls have
And this was one of those things where I knew I wanted there to be a definitive threat with T Omega, and the thing that felt most appropriate was considering the rules that we had outlined with regards to the creation of tears. I'm like, oh man, if I do that merging thing, they'd just be able to generate tears all the time because they're two agents together. So of course they're constantly in collision and therefore constantly creating unstable space.
The other guys just try to stay out of their way over at the Brain Freeze. And Noah postulates his theory that Orion's Morpher might be able to unlock the powers of the legendary Sixth Ranger.
Yeah, I've been, as I said, I've been watching Gokaiger, and yeah, it is interesting that they inverted things by having the Silver Ranger be the alien here, and the rest of the team be humans, as opposed to the Gokaigers, which are the other way around.
With all the inherent wackiness therein, and with the other guys constantly holding Jake back from interrupting the love fest. There must be a limit to how many ships Gia can be on at the same time. Ships? Never mind. On the Armada flagship, the car is busy sulking over their
so many ships.
So Dammers decides to take matters into his own hands, and
but yeah, also just the fact that Gokai Silver was one who had to kind of work to earn his place on the team, whereas here, Orion is immediately just like adopted as like their child, basically.
Really? No new morph sequence? I mean, I know that it took Trent like 14 episodes.
Yes, in Car Ranger, Phantom Ranger is VRV Master and ostensibly the father of Dapu. I still haven't seen Car Ranger, but I am familiar with the background. Yeah, we so many of the scenes we did just film in one location at a time, just for the sake of being able to move through things. Because there was just too much to just keep moving all the time.
Arts and crafts are fun.
They do appear to be getting close.
And this was where I decided to actually acknowledge the fact that there was no movement outside those windows. Because people had called it out in the comments. And it was one thing that I just didn't feel safe doing, driving for real while filming. I tried to create some blur effects during episode 59, but it just the new camera just picked up too much detail of the outside.
Just nearly decapitated there. Finally, it's down to just Osagane and his last.
Also, I love that Database is acting like Guy can see the things that he's describing.
For some reason, I thought he might have more trouble with that. They slash up.
Yeah, that's a nice little nod to Gokaiger, where they accidentally gave him the wrong Gold Ranger key. Which is a funny bit for Gokaiger, but I guess they decided to cut it here.
Unfortunately, Osagane simply takes this as his cue to grow. 3 times in a row for some reason. I guess the first 2 didn't take. And this somehow leads 3
Yeah, just a weird little editing bit there.
Mega Cave to become well, technically you have at least 3 other Megazords that you just stopped using for no reason.
Yeah. It's still
really
weird that they never addressed what happened to their old Zords.
Orion uses the Mighty Morphin Green, Dino Thunder White, and Time Force Quantum keys to summon the legendary...
Yeah, that is true. Orion does have a very similar jacket to
No, it's not.
to Quicksilver from Days of Future Past.
Nothing like that. So, moving on. With the blessing of his fellow Rangers, he takes on the Armada forces himself.
I
First with
still
his drill
have
attacks,
no
then by
idea
transforming it into the...
why they gave
Please stop calling it that.
why they
It's not.
gave it the same name as the Q-Rex. It makes no sense. This is just, again, one of those bits where they...
Do realize that for anyone not watching this episode, that it basically just looks like you're talking to yourself, right?
Oh. Right.
Just ranting at himself.
Orion uses what we'll call the Blue Rex Megazord to take out Osagane for remaining.
It's not like it was a modified version of the Q-Rex in Gokaiger. It was supposed to be a merging of 3 different Ranger powers. So this was just such a weird choice. It's again something that I've referenced before with regards to the issues with Super Megaforce. It's a show that makes a bunch of reference to continuity while relying on you not knowing enough about the continuity to know how much they're messing up. It's very strange. This is probably one of the roughest bits when it came to the sound, unfortunately. Didn't really have too many good locations. And there we go. Here we have the establishment of sort of that split in the timeline.
The group that created TerraVenture, that never actually existed.
Never had a chance to. The allocated funds were redirected into development.
This was before I got to using Audacity to learn how to remove background noise. So this was there was just unfortunately a lot of just some very heavy vents at this loading dock, which is unfortunate.
first time we ever saw anything come out of there.
Wait, out of where? What are you talking about?
The rift. A hole to another dimension.
They came through the rift for Tropina's revenge.
Hi.
Are you guys okay?
We are now. I guess we'll have to continue this conversation later.
Yeah, I guess so. Definitely gonna be a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where, like,
Take good care of him.
You're not coming with us?
the
I've got business to take care of here.
my sound is unfortunately all over the place in this one.
Sure. The Megaforce Rangers meet up at the mall after their battle to discuss.
But yeah, that's where we establish.
But Troy feels
Hey,
he still needs reminding.
We always kind of assumed that Lost Galaxy was in the main universe, but there's never been true evidence that they're in the same universe. Because the only time they've ever interacted with the Earth Rangers has been via wormhole, with the exception of to the 10th Power, and there's no indication that those Space Rangers are on the same timeline as, you know, the Space Rangers that appear in, for instance, the Legendary Battle. And we dig more into how that connects to Hayes' backstory as well in the upcoming 5 episodes.
It's morphin' time.
Okay, I do love that shot. I got just such a great little, like,
For
at
starters,
sunset
the story
shot
of
right
Orion's
there.
origins has got to be one of the best things we've seen out of Megaforce or Super Megaforce to date. In just a few short
And,
scenes, we see
you know, we further establish the split timelines later in episode 86 when we dive into Power of Pink. Like, there's a lot of lore that I dive into across the course of the latter half of the show. And it's released in drips and drabs, so in many regards, it is difficult to get the entire story in one go through, especially with how little the episodes are released.
Unfortunately, this episode falls prey to the same issues.
And I do kind of love using my invisibility to show up and quickly disable him.
Universe and maintaining internal consistency. And nowhere is this made clear
There we go.
than in their battles. Despite the fact that he aids every one of the other Rangers.
I love this fight. We got to see bloopers from us training for this fight.
But also their encouragement. So he's the one having trouble with teamwork. I've already seen that trick before. Let's see how we like it. And don't even get me started
making
on
use of
Sherlock.
invisibility.
I can't stand past references that make no sense and serve no purpose.
I really like that we managed to pull off an invisible fight between T Omega and Phantom. I really wanted to show off their different abilities.
Which has, in fits and starts, finally achieved what the last 3 seasons couldn't, and become a perfectly average Power Rangers series. And now that Silver Lining has brought a little added shine, I've got 2 words to say about the fall return from hiatus. Great.
Yeah, this is also where my CG on my helmet though is far choppier. And this location, by the way, is not actually at the college. This is one of the very few bits that were not at the college. Because I wanted to have this bit of being knocked off a wall, and I needed to find a location. So Justin and I actually drove around until we found a spot that had a good wall and a good background that would match well. And I love how good the hit of the T Omega getting hit by a car looks.
This is going to be
And it's such a good payoff for the keep your eyes on the road recurring gag. Which, you know, obviously later ties into the More Posner's backstory and origins. But that shot of T Omega getting hit by the car, I'm very proud of, because we had to think over how best to do it, but Tom is absolutely not getting hit by that car. What Tom is doing is walking out, turning, and then reacting as if he's getting hit by the car. And then I had him step out of the way, and I kept the camera in place, and I shot Justin driving by with the car repeatedly, including looking, smiling out the window straight at the camera as he drives by, and I composited the two together. That is probably one of my favorite composites. It goes by very quick. You can barely even tell that it's a composite. It just looks like he's getting hit by a car. Because the cropping just played really well. He was moving fast enough, and it came across great. Okay. Where did we film the DB Guide to Omega parts of this episode? It was primarily at the college where we film all of Alphabet Soup. It was the college that MJ and I graduated from. Just has so many interesting locations and a very industrialized look to a lot of its interiors and exteriors. But the final showdown was outside of a random little office building in a tech park, like maybe 5 minutes away from where we live. That Justin and I just happened to find driving around. I'm like, I need to find someplace that's going to work. Let's see if we can find someplace that'll work and that you feel comfortable driving through, and that's going to look right if you're driving past, a wall. Because I wanted to have Database get knocked off of something high so that he's in a rough spot, so that we have the T Omega jumps down and slowly crosses. With regards to the college that we graduated from, I do choose not to reveal too many location-specific details on the channel and social media. But if we're gonna be chatting privately, I can tell you later. It's not something that I tend to like to put out there on the internet. I'm sure you could probably figure it out if you've paid enough attention to various details. But it's the college that MJ and I graduated from, and that was the college where we met. And we've made use of so many locations on that college. I've used locations on there for grid defense. I've used so many of their buildings, interior, exterior locations. Even the Playhouse Theater was used for the one bit where I had to knock out two agents at once in episode 38 with the little lemon juice bottles, where both of those agents were me behind two different monitors, and that was actually a lighting booth for the theater, so I had to set up scaffolding, position the camera on top of that, run up, film from 3 different locations, and run back down to turn it off. So yeah, this was an episode that took a lot to put together. I really pushed to make sure I could have everything ready to go, because I knew that this was going to be when the last thing I was going to be able to shoot with Tom before he moved away. So this was like the summer before I mean, it was so many years ago now, but I think this was when he was going to move away to start grad school, if I remember correctly. So, he needed to be out there by the fall. And so, I didn't get to film this until July. So warm, filming that fight scene. And then it took so long to get all the effects done across the course of August. So, now I take a look. This one was released on September 1st, which is hardly really spring anymore. Technically the season started while it was still spring, but these episodes they took so much work, especially this one, because I had to do the CG tracking with the Phantom, engaging in a fight scene for the first time. I had to figure out that split effect on T Omega. So with all of those, whenever you're seeing T Omega split apart as I'm fighting him, keep in mind that's probably 3 takes each time. There's like I do a I do or I'll do like a punch on my own. Then I'll do a punch with uh, Tom on one side of the punch. Then I'll do a punch with Tom on the other side of the punch. And we'll do like 5 takes of each of those 3 different versions of the shot. And then I'll also just have a plain shot where none of us are in it, so I have default of the background. And then I'll have to, mess with the transparency as he goes kind of ethereal. I'll overlay the 2 Toms on top of me. I may do some cropping to make sure that they can overlap just so when they split apart and back together. Just so much work to pull that off. Not to mention placing in all those tears, sealing up all the tears, the rendering for all of those effects, because the portal effects that result when a tear gets stabilized is just like a whole bunch of layers on top of each other to create that weird, like, otherworldly effect. And I was still kind of new to creating those effects too. So there was just so much work that went into that. Not to mention, choreographing the fight scene. Like, we had to meet up to work it out and then meet up to film. Because we wanted to make sure that would work well. For the CGI helmet, I don't wear a blue mask. I wear I put a little black hood over my head to keep my hair in place in case anything escapes. And I just basically I'm just doing all of that tracking by eye. So I'm just sort of watching. I'm like, okay, I'm probably tilting my head at like a 45-degree angle. I need to make sure that I'm tilting the CG head at a 45-degree angle. Okay, my eye, I'm turning the transparency on and off, on and off. Okay, that looks about right. Okay, now where does my head move next? Okay, now it's over here, so I gotta tilt it at another few degrees. And on and off, on and off. Okay, does that look about right? Okay, now let me see how it moves from this frame to that frame. Okay, does that look smooth? Is there a little jump? Am I maintaining the orientation of the helmet relative to my head? And doing all that with so much motion was very challenging. And unfortunately, when it did come out in the final render, it is a little choppier than I was hoping. And a big part of that is just, unfortunately, the render didn't quite match what it was looking like in Premiere as I was doing some things, or in Maya as I was doing other things. And so every now and again, you can see some little part of my head underneath escaping with the little edge of the hood, or maybe the edge of my glasses, because I need to be able to see as I'm doing this. So it's definitely a lot rougher, I'd say, in this episode than it was in its initial introduction, where I was really working hard to make a good first impression, and here I was just struggling just to keep up with the movements that I was making and with the timeline I'd set for myself. This episode took a long time. Actually, if I were to check here, let me see here. So, yeah, it was a month between. So yeah, 62 came out in August 4th, and then 63 came out in September 1st. So that took me a solid 4 weeks to go from 62 to 63. And then as far as 61, when did that one come out? That one was July 9th. So yeah, at this point, I'm coming out with only one of these episodes per month because 62 took so long and 63 took so long. And 62 in part took so long because I was filming 63, which was just this massive undertaking. So I had to kind of work on them together because, they were all 62 and 63 were kind of in large part filmed together because they were all on location. And so I wanted to film everything for both episodes at once as best as I can. So I tried to write as much of it in advance as I could, and then and then I had to spend so much time prepping the costume, so and working out the locations and the choreography. And whenever you're doing fight choreography, it's always also just like, or well, I say whenever I'm doing fight choreography, because I think everybody has a different process. A lot of it is exploratory when I'm doing fight scenes. I have a general idea of what I want, and then I meet up with my actor, and we just kind of feel through, okay, where are your comfort levels when it comes to fighting? Because neither of us are professionals. And it's just like, okay, where do your kicks go? What do you feel comfortable blocking? Do you feel comfortable with rolls? So you might notice whenever Guy is fighting, it often leans heavily into the rolls, because that was Dave's strength, having done Aikido. So I have something like him having to be thrown, or him doing a little somersault, or him doing a flip, or him getting kicked in the face. So those are all things that work very well for him. Tom, on the other hand, was formerly in the military. So he's much more familiar with very tight, close combat, little strikes. So that's what I decided we would lean into for T Omega versus Phantom. As you can see, it's kind of a, punch, block, punch, block, punch, block, kick, block, kick, block, click, block. And he doesn't have the same high kicks that I do, so I decided to go for those lower angles to kind of sell the kicks a little better. So there was a lot that went into making that fight scene work. And then, of course, wanting to show off the special effects of, okay, we're having this little exchange, but then as soon as you go in for the punch, he's going to split right apart, because that's what he does. And it was also just kind of fun leaning into, okay, he's got powers, well, so does Phantom. He's got invisibility. I'm going to have an invisible fight. And it's just like, okay, Tom, you need to act like you're going to hit this way. You need to act like you're going to hit this way. And you need to move this part of your body this way. So it was a very involved process, kind of discovering that fight scene that just plays throughout the whole thing. Yeah. Back when he was younger. That was, I believe, how he paid for college. So everybody who I work with has different backgrounds that I can kind of lean into when it comes to a fight scene. Like me specifically, I lean into those high kicks because that happens to be my specialty. So that's why I do the kick in the face, which was obviously a very fun bit to do for the original reveal that Database could fight, because up until that point, I mean, you can't really tell anything about my physique from the Database Ranger costume. You can't tell if I'm in good shape, bad shape, whatever. So actually seeing, oh, wait, this guy can fight, and he kicks like 6 feet in the air, that's ridiculous. And, I liked very much playing with how the T Omega powers worked in this episode. All right, I'll have to check for that DM when I get some time. But yeah, like okay, he was splitting apart, so if Database could grab 2 of them, he could rip them apart, but then he comes right back together on the other side of Database, and he can throw punches, but he could throw, twice as many punches, twice as fast as a normal person, because he can have 4 fists at once, and then when all of the hands come together at once, he's going to have that much more force in his strike. And so the big goal in terms of how to defeat him was just to successfully separate both parts enough for him to lose stability and vanish. Which was why we had Boom with the car, which I'm like, oh, that's going to be perfect, just because the Morpossners always have the trouble with the eye on the road, and then this is a big, fun payoff for that, helping to resolve a conflict. So yeah, obviously there was a lot that went into this episode. I've ranted and raved about all the different work that I put in. Yep, I got that, Dyrano. Thanks. But it's obviously starting to get a little late. So I should probably be wrapping things up. Because next week we've got a whole big new arc to start up with the 5-part summer saga that ironically started in early September. I think I got it out technically before the summer ended. I got it out before the autumnal equinox, so therefore it is still summer when the summer saga starts. But yes, all that being said, thank you very much for joining me. I hope that this was an interesting commentary for you, because there was so much that went into producing this particular episode, as there often is when it comes to these little season finales. And as there will continue to be as the new episodes continue to roll out, as we count down our final 5 episodes being released this year, which is going to be insane. Oh, Rudy, as far as what inspired me to do power reviews, I think I've talked about that a little bit before, but I've got inspired by Linkara and that guy with the glasses whole genre, because I was very frustrated in life at the time and was looking for a means to express myself creatively. And I was seeing all these people doing their little review shows, and it looked like something that I would be able to do myself on my schedule and get a chance to sort of create something different. And I realized that the one thing that would make sense if I were to do a review show would be to review Power Rangers. And since Linkara was already doing the history of the Power Rangers, season by season, it only made sense for me to do episodes of Power Rangers. And I wanted to include my then girlfriend at the time, now wife, and have them be a part of the show. And they were a dead ringer for Dr. K, so I decided to have Dr. K be part of the show. And I'm like, oh, if Dr. K is part of the show, maybe I should be a Power Rangers character as well. And that's where the story started to evolve. And it's adopted a lot of different elements that I've had in Power Rangers headcanon for a very long time, and a lot of different elements that have been in little unwritten fanfic stories for me that I'm finally getting to play out in real life, which has been crazy. Oh, and yes, I've seen Cameron Gibo and Sierra Hana talk about their disappointment with the lack of development on their characters. There were so many missed opportunities with Super Megaforce, unfortunately. But as I said about 5 minutes ago, it is getting late. So let us wrap things up with our remaining 3 equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say it with me, chat. Love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Robots are cool. Especially when they can turn invisible and fight splitty dudes. It's just great times. So, thank you all again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again next week when we kick off the summer saga. And, as always, until next time, farewell, Ranger fans. And let the power protect you.